Tough time with Creighton last night, but held on to win by 24 points from sophomore guard Kiki Rice. The Bruins advanced to the Sweet 16 in the Albany Regional in upstate New York. Next up for the Bruins is defending national champion LSU on Saturday. The Clippers gave up 133 points to Indiana last night. They lost by 17. Fifth straight home loss for the Clippers. Russell Westbrook had 14 points and 7 assists in his first game back from a broken hand. LeBron's left ankle is bothering him again. He's doubtful for tonight's game in Milwaukee. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
Reparations Now has been a rallying cry in this country and around the world for decades. But the demand has taken on new urgency with growing momentum on the issue led by the state of California, which has completed an extensive study and put forth recommendations to enact reparations. California's reparations actions have huge nationwide implications. The California Task Force was the first of its kind in the nation, and the states of New York and Colorado recently voted to take on the issue. Dozens of cities from coast to coast, including San Francisco, Boston, Los Angeles, and Detroit, have started their own reparations commissions. One of the first known reparationists was Callie House, who toured the nation advocating for reparations in the 1890s. But never in this nation's history has the movement to heal the harms of enslavement, institutionalized racism, and the system of white supremacy seemed so strong. The topic remains untouchable for most elected officials, and the call for reparations has not yet garnered widespread public support. Polling shows that most Californians agree that black fellow citizens are still suffering from the damage done by slavery and Jim Crow, but they still do not support cash reparations. The California Legislative Black Caucus has introduced a package of proposals for bills that do not include 1 penny of cash compensation, restitution, or repair. Governor Newsom and other lawmakers have distanced themselves from the concept of cash payments. While Newsom is right, cash alone will not repair our collective harm, the state's goofy legislative package ignoring monetary payments is disingenuous. California lawmakers need to step up and put a reparations bill for cash payments on the table. The issue of how it is funded, the timeline, or whether it impacts our current budget challenges can be addressed. But we must strike while the iron is hot, or the window of opportunity will pass us by. If you agree that it's time for our lawmakers to add a bill enacting cash payments to their lineup, call them at 916-319-3868 and say, if it doesn't include cash, it ain't reparations. That's 916-319-3868. Tell him Callie House sent you. From Bruce's Beach to the California Task Force, the Golden State is a trailblazer when it comes to reparations. The world is watching. We must rise to the historical moment and set a precedent for cash payments along with legislative remedies and policies addressing the systemic badges of slavery and Jim Crow. We must insist on measures significant enough to help close the racial wealth gap. California must stand for cash, and the time for reparations is now. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dominique DePrima. We welcome your comments.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. That's Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak with their song 777 throughout this hour. Since we're talking about Las Vegas in this hour, I'm sure Miles, our board op, who, by the way, is from Las Vegas, will be favoring you with some Las Vegas-themed tracks as we move through this hour. So we'll just sit back and see what Miles spins this hour as we talk about black folk and Las Vegas. Claytee D is the inaugural director of the Oral History Research Center for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Libraries, UNLV. As one of the 5 founders of the Las Vegas Black Historical Society, Inc., she chronicles the history of the Las Vegas black community that goes all the way back to 1905. She has published on the subject in a variety of spaces, books, encyclopedias, articles, etc., etc. I am honored to have Claytee White on this program. How are you today?
I am wonderful, Tavis. How are you?
If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing well, and I'm delighted to have you on this program, and glad to sort of unpack this hour. As I mentioned, my board op, young brother named Miles, is from Vegas, so he's all excited. We're talking about an hour of Vegas and black people, which leads me to start the conversation with this. I've told Miles this story before. This is many, many, many years ago, obviously, but when I first went to Vegas decades ago and ran into some black folk, I was sort of stunned. This is going to sound crazy, but I know I ain't the only one who felt this way. It's going to sound crazy. I was like, y'all live here? And I said, hold up. Y'all black folk, y'all actually live in Las Vegas? They said, yeah, Negro, we live in Las Vegas. Do you think the Strip is the only thing in Las Vegas? It had never, ever occurred to me. That black folk actually live in Las Vegas. We don't just go there to play and to gamble and for the fights and for concerts and all that sort of stuff. That there is a black community. There is black culture in Las Vegas. So that was, again, decades ago. So I kind of remember that moment. I feel kind of stupid even sharing that story after all these years. But again, it just never occurred to me that people actually lived in Las Vegas and that there were black folk who lived in Vegas. And then, of course, as my career unfolds and I'm learning more and I'm reading more, I have the honor of becoming a friend of Harry Belafonte. And the closer I got to Mr. B and the more stories he told me about being in Vegas back in the day and the integration of Vegas and the role that Frank Sinatra played and all these stories. And so I got more and more fascinated about the relationship between black folk in Las Vegas. And here we are all these years later with you on this national program talking about black folk in Vegas. Who knew? Anyway, we're betting on black this hour and just getting started in this conversation with an authority on Vegas and black people. She is, again, the inaugural director of the Oral History Research Center for University of Nevada, Las Vegas Libraries, and she's one of the 5 founders of the Las Vegas Black Historical Society, Inc. That history goes all the way back, I said, to 1905. So we're going to learn about Vegas and black folk in this hour. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit-on-the-go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just 1 dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. with more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
So you just used bug spray in your home. Now what? Well, between the waiting and waiting for things to dry up and keeping your family away from the mess, it hits you. You could have used Zevo. Unlike other bug sprays that stick around, Zevo goes from kill to clean in seconds. Plus, it's safe for use around people and pets when used as directed. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Bright light city, gonna set my soul on fire. Got a whole lot of money that's ready to burn, so get those stakes up higher. There's 1,000 pretty women waiting out there. They're all living the devil may care, and I'm just a devil with love to spare. So viva Las Vegas, viva Las Vegas.
So we started the hour, started the show today playing some Frank Sinatra. Luck Be a Lady Tonight. Of course, Frank Sinatra was the head of the Rat Pack that included one Sammy Davis Jr., and now you're playing some Elvis Presley. So we know that story. We know that part of Vegas, and on the vanilla side of town, as my friend Cornell West would say. But let's talk in this hour about the chocolate side of town. There is a long-standing history of black people in Las Vegas. I joked earlier that when I first went to Vegas, I know black people actually lived in Vegas. And over the years, I've learned so much about Moulin Rouge. And again, I've been a student at Harry Belafonte's feet for years, God rest his soul, just learning more about the backstory of this city from him and others. But I'm honored to have in this hour a real expert about black folk in Las Vegas. Her name is Claytee D. White, once again, the inaugural director of the Oral History Research Center for UNLV Libraries and one of the 5 founders of the Las Vegas Black Historical Society, Inc., chronicling the history of the Las Vegas black community that goes all the way back to 1905, that is. So who better to have on to talk about black folk in Vegas than Claytee D. White? Let me just jump right in and pass the mic to you and ask you to tell me about the early origins. How did black folk first find their way to Las Vegas?
So Las Vegas was a railroad town. It started just before 1905, and there was a surveyor who surveyed the property that was sold to the railroad. Downtown started east of the railroad tracks, and Block 17 was set aside for African Americans. So as African Americans came into the city to work on the railroad like everybody else, that's where they stayed. They started businesses. They had homes. They did all kinds of things, and they worked on the railroad just like everyone else. So
you say Block 17 was reserved for black people. I know exactly what you mean by that. Even in Las Vegas, when black people started arriving, they said, y'all Negroes stay right over here. This is Block 17. You do your thing over here. So even then, black folk were quarantined.
That's correct. Black folks were segregated just like they were every place else in the country. Jim Crow came here right along with the migration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So tell me about black folk and helping to build these railroads in Vegas.
Well, the railroad was built before 1905. The railroad started. So we had some people working on the railroad who were Chinese, Native American, blacks, just like the railroads that ran across the country. Mm-hmm. But this was the hub of the railroad because this railroad joined Southern California with Salt Lake City. Mm. The owners of the railroad had to find a place in between where the trains could stop for water, ice, and repairs. Mm-hmm. And that's why Las Vegas is here. Had nothing to do with gambling. This was because of the railroad. Mm-hmm.
They needed someplace to stop on their journey.
That's correct.
Yeah. Tell me about what these black folk were doing in Block 17.
on Block 17.
Mm-hmm.
One person that you should know about is Mary Nettles.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Nettles was an entrepreneur on boarding houses and other businesses. She was one of the founders of our NAACP chapter here, and probably the wealthiest black person in that early town of Las Vegas. We had other people who owned restaurants, barbershops, and all of the businesses that keep a community operating.
Mm-hmm. I'm always fascinated when I hear these backstories of women who were the wealthiest in their particular era or arena. And there are a number of names that come to mind. Of course, you raised the name now in Vegas of Mary Nettles. In an era where black people were trying to navigate segregation and Jim Crow and Jane Crow, how did a black woman fight through all that patriarchy, all that sexism to become so wealthy?
It was probably a tiny bit easier for women, and that's probably why we hear those stories.
Mm-hmm.
They probably were not as much a threat to the white people who controlled the city at the time. Probably just didn't see them as the forces that would cause trouble, that would be the revolutionaries that they really were. They probably just looked at black men as more of a threat to them than black women. So black women probably had more space to operate.
Mm-hmm. What kinds of beyond working on the railroad? Give me a sense of the kinds of jobs and professions that these black folk were engaged in Block 17.
They had restaurants, barbershops, boarding houses, and other businesses. There was a church. So it was a tiny, tiny community. Las Vegas was a tiny community. So we're talking about at the beginning, probably 50 black people at the beginning.
At the very beginning. Okay. Got it.
Uh-huh. So we're just talking about businesses that they needed in their everyday life.
Yep.
A dry cleaners.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, so from these humble beginnings around 1905 and just a handful of black people, tell me how, and again, we got an hour, we're going to unpack all this. Tell me more then about, broadly speaking, about how the black community in Vegas started to grow beyond those initial tens of people.
Okay. So in 1931, the Hoover Dam was constructed a few miles outside of Las Vegas. Black people began to migrate here for those jobs just like everybody else. Well, black people didn't get those jobs on the Hoover Dam. But as their migration continued and the black community was moved across the tracks with more property, more and more blacks poured in. World War II started in 1941. And we were one of the places in the country that had lots of war-related jobs, especially a place called Basic Magnesium Incorporated. Basic Magnesium starts the city of Henderson, a federal employer that recruited black workers to come out to work at Basic Magnesium. It processed the manganese ore that built war materials, guns, rifles, airplanes. Germany already had the technology by the time World War II started. The United States was behind. They wanted a factory near water, the Hoover Dam, and we had a railroad that could bring the ore into the area. So they chose the area that they did that became the city of Henderson. And that black migration has never stopped till today.
Wow, we're going to unpack that black migration that hasn't stopped until today as we move through this hour.
That's correct.
Let me just ask you this, and this is a broad question, and I'm not naive in asking it. That you made the point pretty powerfully earlier in this conversation, Claytee D. White, that Jim Crow and segregation, everything that black folk were subjected to everywhere else, they were subjected to in Vegas. It followed them right on to Vegas, and that's why they were told to stay in Block 17. This is your part of town. You're quarantined over here. Stay there. And they started to build their own thing, and as you said, the black migration to Vegas hasn't stopped since then. That said, tell me about the racism the prejudice, the ways in which black folk were maltreated back then?
So just like you were talking about earlier, some of the stories you heard from Harry Belafonte, those were the clear ways that racism showed in this area. So when black people left Block 17, they were told to move across the tracks. And that's where they moved, and they started a community. We call it the West Side today. And that became the area that blacks had to live. That area had restaurants and cocktail lounges with gaming, where our stars like Harry and Sammy Davis and Nat King Cole and Count Basie would go after entertaining on the Las Vegas Strip in downtown. They would come back to those areas for jam sessions, and that's where they would stay in boarding houses. So that's what it looked like here. So there are black churches. We probably have more black churches in the West Side community than any other part of Las Vegas, of the Las Vegas Valley.
So the West Side is where the West Side is where black folk were concentrated.
That's correct.
Let me ask you a question: Is the West Side still where they're concentrated, or is it like other cities now where black folk are living anywhere and everywhere they want?
Blacks are living anywhere and everywhere they want to, just like every place else. Integration comes here in the early 1960s. Schools were integrated in 1972. We had a consent decree of 1971 that mandated jobs on the Las Vegas Strip for blacks, 12% in a whole array of job categories. So that's the way blacks began to move every place in the city, because now they're working in the industry that controls our state.
So tell me what the West Side looks like today. And I'm asking that because when black folk finally got freed from being stuck in Block 17, they move across the railroad tracks. They start to build what has been known for years now, decades, as the West Side. But whether we're talking L.A., where I sit right now, in South L.A., South Central ain't black like it used to be, and I can walk around the country to cities that this program is heard in right now and unpack the history of how areas that used to be exclusively black have been taken over by others. So what's the West Side in Vegas look like today?
So it is gentrified just like other black communities.
Yeah.
But we had a downturn in the economy of the West Side in the 1980s. It is when crack cocaine was here. Blacks had better jobs. They began to move out of that area into all other parts of the city. And that area, those businesses that I talked about where there were jam sessions back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, those businesses are vacant lots today. We still have a lot of black residents, and there are a lot of middle-class developments that are still there today, well occupied, but now well integrated, well gentrified. We have lots of Latinx, a large Latinx population, probably almost as large as the black population, and we have white people moving into the area as well. Because this area is only a half mile from downtown Las Vegas. And as you probably know, downtown has been under renovation for a very, very long time. Lots of people are moving back into that downtown area, and they need housing. This area will become gentrified even more.
No, I hear your point. That's happening in cities all across this country. I'm sitting in Lamert Park here in L.A. right now, and it's gentrifying like nobody's business. So don't get me started talking about gentrification. I'll leave that alone for now. You mentioned black people in education and what happened in 1972. Let me just ask you to tell me more about how black folk got access or did not to the rungs of education in that city. And I asked that because certainly at the collegiate level, many black people fell in love with UNLV, the Running Rebels, back in the day when they were winning everything. Everybody remembers the Running Rebels and Jerry Tarkanian. And for those of us who are sports fans, that really sort of put UNLV on the map back in that era when those guys were winning and just their athleticism. I remember like it was yesterday, was amazing. Those Running Rebels at UNLV. So that puts the city on the map in terms of, I think, in terms of its academics at the collegiate level. But talk to me about black people across the board and the access they did or did not have as they helped to settle Las Vegas.
So black people having access to education, that access came early on. Mm-hmm. There was a West Side school built in the black community, and there were other elementary schools that peppered that area. 1947, we get the first black teacher in the Las Vegas school system at that time. Mm-hmm. And that population begins to grow, that number of black teachers. In the 70s, at one point, we get a black superintendent, unheard of. But we get a black superintendent who hires other black teachers out of the HBCU system. Mm-hmm. His name was Claude Perkins. But black teachers started in 1947. They were very, very active in the community. That first black teacher, Mabel Hogarth, was also part of the West Side Credit Union, teaching black kids about saving. So they were role models in the community as well as school teachers. We had Bernice Moulton, who comes in 1965 as one of the black teachers, and she is the mother of Fred Moulton, who teaches right now in New York. Yes, one of our foremost thinkers, grew up here on the West. Yes, grew up on the West Side. So we had access to education. Unfortunately, school integration that took place in 1972 was probably a detriment to the education in the way that it had started, because our integration system was called, what was it called now? It was called centers, sixth grade centers. Mm-hmm. So all of the black elementary schools became sixth grade centers. Mm-hmm. White kids came into the black community 1 year, sixth grade. Mm. Black kids were bused out into other communities, starting with the first grade, and we didn't have a high school. So all the way through school, blacks were bused all over the city.
Let me pause there for a second. If I've had one conversation, I've had countless over the course of my career about not just the benefits of integration, but the detriment of integration. And you hear Claytee D starting to inch in that direction. I'm going to unpack that a bit more when we come forward. In Vegas specifically, the downside to this integration. I haven't gotten yet to the entertainment. We sort of tiptoed around it, but there's some great stories here about the ways that Moulin Rouge and these other black casinos and clubs really opened up Vegas and convinced them that if these Negroes are good enough to perform over there, they should belong on the Strip. Frank Sinatra was involved in that. I heard these stories all from Harry Belafonte. But more with Claytee D. White talking about black folk in Las Vegas when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The search continues for missing people after a Baltimore, Maryland bridge collapsed overnight after a container ship crashed into it. Officials said at least 6 construction workers were on the Francis Scott Key Bridge when it plunged into the river. They remain unaccounted for. 2 were rescued overnight, with 1 being hospitalized. We'll continue to keep you updated on this story. The Los Angeles, California, and Miami, Florida homes of African-American rapper and businessman Sean Diddy Combs have been raided by Homeland Security over reported allegations of sex trafficking. At least 2 of Diddy's sons were detained outside of the LA home. The investigation is being handled by Homeland Security and may be tied to 2 recent lawsuits, one which accused Diddy of sex trafficking and the other dealing with sex with a minor. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
Is this the title? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
USC is in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament for the first time in 30 years. The Trojans beat Kansas by 18 last night at the Galen Center. Freshman All-American Juju Watkins had 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists. USC will play Baylor Saturday in the Portland Regional Semifinals. UCLA had a tough time with Creighton last night, but held on to win by 4, 24 points from sophomore guard Kiki Rice. The Bruins advanced to the Sweet 16 in the Albany Regional in upstate New York. Next up for the Bruins is defending national champion LSU on Saturday. The Clippers gave up 133 points to Indiana last night. They lost by 17. 5th straight home loss for the Clippers. Russell Westbrook had 14 points and 7 assists in his first game back from a broken hand. LeBron's left ankle is bothering him again. He's doubtful for tonight's game in Milwaukee. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
If we're the ones disproportionately impacted by these climate catastrophes, why should we be silent? Turning up the volume all year long on the climate conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Feel plenty good by incorporating Silk into your morning routine. Silk's delicious plant-based beverages help bring a daily dose of goodness. They are rich in calcium and a good source of vitamins A and D to support the health of you and your family. Shop wherever you find groceries.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, bro?
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZI to learn more.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now. Right now. Right now. Right now.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone.
He is one of the greatest entertainers the world has ever known. We think about Michael Jackson and maybe one or two others, but Sammy Davis Jr. belongs on that list. You may be too young to know or recall all his exploits, but Sammy Davis Jr. was the man back in the day, and we are talking about all things Vegas and black people. Today is the anniversary of the integration of Las Vegas, March 26, 1960. Integration, that is, in terms of restaurants and nightclubs and hotels. The rest of the country, as you know, doesn't really integrate until around 1964. So in many respects, Vegas was ahead of the country by 4 years on this issue of integration. Of course, that integration cuts a couple different ways. There are always downsides to integration, and there are always upsides to integration. We'll get to the upsides in a moment, and we'll talk about those entertainers like Sammy Davis Jr. and Mr. B, Harry Belafonte, and others who helped to integrate Las Vegas. But you were tiptoeing very gingerly, Claytee D. White. I felt you, and I heard you tiptoeing toward a critique of integration in Las Vegas. So give me that critique, and then we'll talk about the upsides of these entertainers who helped make it happen.
Okay, so first I want to make something very clear. Those Frank Sinatra may have done a few things to help with integration, a few steps in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
If I would give any credit to any entertainers, it would be Sammy Davis and Josephine Baker.
Mm-hmm.
I would give them more credit for helping the black community in that direction. But integration itself that takes place on today in 1960 was really taken care of. All the work was done by black people on the ground in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
The first black doctor was James B. McMillan. He was president of the NAACP in March of 1960. He had received a letter 2 weeks prior to the 26th from the National NAACP asking branches all over the country to up-level what they were doing toward integration. He took that to heart. He wrote a letter to the mayor of the city of Las Vegas, and he said if integration doesn't take place by March 26th, we're going to demonstrate on the Las Vegas Strip on a Saturday night.
Mm.
Negotiations go back and forth between, of course, the casino owners,
mm-hmm.
the people who run the city, the mayor, and people like that, and the black community. And they decide that they are going to integrate the city. It was a period of a lot of hostility. Black men in the community had to protect Dr. McMillan His home had to be protected around the clock. So all of those things happened in that 2-week period. But leading up to that, we had people who were sitting in. We had a minister who sat in 1949 in a drugstore here because he wanted to be able to sit there and read his newspaper with a cup of coffee. So we see steps all along leading to integration. When Josephine Baker comes here in 1952, she demands and puts it in her contract that she will have an integrated audience and that she will have a couple of tables that she will fill with her friends every night. And she does that. So we have those kinds of things happening. It is possible that Frank Sinatra said one night that if Sammy can't stay here, then we're not going to entertain. Now, that could have happened, but we can't find the record. We've looked everywhere for that. We cannot find that.
Yeah.
Now, Frank Sinatra had a reputation of being very egalitarian, having friends of all races. We know that about him. But we also know how integration took place in Las Vegas.
Now, one thing that is true, I take your point. One thing that is true is that Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Peter Lawford and the Rat Pack and their other friends, when they finished doing their shows on the Strip, they came to the West Side. They came to Moulin Rouge. They knew what the best entertainment in town was. They would finish their shows and come to the black side of town, would they not?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah. That story always amazes me because even as he is the chairman of the board and the most popular thing in America, he understood and knew what the best entertainment in town was. And as soon as they finished their shows on the Strip, they'd run across town to the black side of town, hanging out at the Moulin Rouge and other places. But tell me more about the role you think Sammy Davis. You mentioned Sammy Davis Jr. and Josephine Baker as the two you'd give the most credit to. Tell me why you give them the credit.
Okay, so I just told you about Josephine.
Sure.
She was here for that 2-week period and what she did.
Right.
Well, Sammy Davis, when he was here, living at a boarding house on the West Side, he would do other things in the community. We have photographs of him participating in the community, being with children in the community, doing things at schools, helping with the welfare rights movement, a photograph of him along with the women who participated in welfare rights. He helped to support that.
Yeah.
So just like he helped to support Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement, he helped with other things here in the black community. Yeah. And he later on had 8 points in the Tropicana Hotel. We don't know about that.
Oh, yeah. We talked about Sammy Davis Jr. and played some of his stuff. Here's a little Josephine Baker for you. And when we come forward, I still want to hear the other part of this conversation, and that is the ways in which Claytee D thinks integration may have hurt black folk in Vegas, but now the smooth sounds of Josephine Baker on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what politics is supposed to produce.
This election year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the place for politics. Unapologetically progressive politics. And we've got two of the best and brightest to help you cut through all the noise. Weekdays at 1 p.m., it's a More Perfect Union with Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte. And at 4 p.m., it's Areva Martin in Real Time. He's the university professor and distinguished member of the White House Correspondents Association. She's a best-selling author and Harvard-trained civil rights lawyer. And they are both here every day to help guide you through all the this year, because you know it's going to get deep. Get your politics on weekday afternoons at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. with a More Perfect Union, hosted by Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte and Areva Martin in Real Time, only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your flag.
I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Claytee D. White, who is the inaugural director of the Oral History Research Center for UNLV Libraries and one of the 5 founders of the Las Vegas Black Historical Society. We are talking about black folk in Vegas today because about 4 years ahead of the rest of the country, Vegas today in 1960 integrated in terms of restaurants and casinos and the like. It was an amazing day back in 1960. Again, 4 years ahead of the rest of the country. They advanced this notion of integrating certain public spaces. I want to ask 2 questions right quick, watching my time here. Number one, Claytee D. White, why do you think Vegas was ripe for being 4 years ahead of the rest of the country when it came to this issue of integration?
So I think it was ripe because of the entertainers who had come.
Mm-hmm.
These world-renowned entertainers who did not want this treatment. And yes, they had the treatment in all other cities, but here we didn't have a black-owned hotel that could rival the places where they were entertaining. So they couldn't go to Harlem and stay in a nice hotel. They couldn't go to Central Avenue in Los Angeles and stay in a nice hotel. Here we had boarding houses.
Yeah, in Harlem, they all stayed at the Hotel Teresa, and here in L.A., they stayed at the Hotel Dunbar.
Okay, so they didn't have that option here. So, and they complained a lot about that. So I think that was one of the pushes.
Yeah.
But also, that was public accommodations, 1960. It meant that blacks could spend their money in those hotel casinos. They could gamble, they could spend the night, they could go to shows. But supposedly, when they worked that agreement out, they also said something about jobs for blacks other than those in the back of the house. Well, those never materialized. So in 1971, a consent decree was put together by our first black attorney here, Charles Keller. And that consent decree mandated 12% of jobs on the Las Vegas Strip to blacks, like bartenders and cocktail waitresses and dealers. So that made the difference. So integration was one thing. Jobs came a little later.
Yeah.
And then we see the real integration of the city beginning to take place as blacks had the money to move out into other parts of the city.
Top line for me right quick here. Top line for me, what you think some of the downsides were to this integration that black people rightly and justly fought for.
The downsides were a lot of the businesses in the black community began to close.
Mm-hmm.
Blacks moved out of the community. A lot of those were the entrepreneurs. And then in the 1980s, we got the cocaine, the crack cocaine came into the communities. And that was the element then that really brings down that community.
Yeah.
And you see more and more entrepreneurs moving out. It's very unfortunate.
Unfortunate is one word for it. I might say deliberate, but that's another conversation for another
of
time.
Course. Yes, that's correct. Yes.
When we come forward in our remaining moments with Claytee D. White, who's just an expert. I love talking to her, just an expert on all things Vegas and black people. She mentioned earlier that the black migration to Vegas has not stopped since 1905. Now, some of y'all are going there because the Raiders are there. But beyond that, I am curious as to why black people in 2024 are still moving. Why is that migration of black folk to Vegas still underway? We'll talk about that part when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Heard the catchphrase that's sweeping the nation?
Jackson Hugh, yeah.
People are saying Jackson Hugh, yeah, to Jackson Hewitt because they love saving money on tax prep. Do you love saving money? Then switch to Jackson Hewitt today and pay less than last year. Thousands of people have already made the switch. Why haven't you? Stop waiting and start filing. You won't get a better deal or a better catchphrase. All together now.
Jackson Hugh, yeah!
Proof of prior year payment required when filing. New clients only at participating locations through April 7th. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley and Claytee D, one of the 5 founders of the Las Vegas Black Historical Society, Inc. And they do an amazing job of chronicling the history of the Las Vegas black community, established back in 1905. Why we're talking about it today? Glad you asked, because today, in 1960, March 26, Vegas moved ahead of the rest of the country on the issue of integration in terms of hotels and restaurants and casinos and the like. They were 4 years ahead of all the rest of us on this integration thing, and so we are celebrating all things black folk in Vegas and all those black folk who made that integration happen ahead of the rest of the country in the city of Las Vegas. So they were there then. They've been there since then, and they're still going to Vegas. So since you went there, Claytee D. White, tell me why you think black folk are still migrating to Las Vegas in 2024.
Well, we're the entertainment capital of the world. And now tourism is becoming a global thing, and we're the heart of it. Not only the regular entertainers that you think about, but now we also have all sports here. We're just waiting for the NBA. So we're just waiting on we're just waiting on Shaq and a couple of other people to get together to bring the NBA here. And then we will be so well rounded. Yeah. We have housing that's such a great investment right now, more than Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So people are moving here, even from where you are. They're moving to Las Vegas.
What's the cost of living like in Las Vegas?
I don't know how to. Our gasoline prices are too high. Probably not as high as yours. We're almost $4.50 a gallon. Groceries have gone up, of course. Right. But still, we are less than New York and and some other places. But we're a brand new city. Right. We're 1905. Mm-hmm. Las Vegas, Los Angeles, New York, Boston, Chicago, all of those cities, we're talking about the 1600s, 1700s. Mm-hmm. So we are still innovating. We are still growing. We are still changing, and technology is coming here. We're going to have Sony Studios here. Mm-hmm. So it means that our technology, the university is working not just with aerospace, but with all other areas of innovation.
Yeah. And I got about a minute here to go. What about what's the black power base? I'm talking now about political power, economic power. What's the black power base like in Las Vegas these days in 2024?
So the area that we've been talking about, the West Side, we have a black city councilman. We have a black county commissioner. Mm-hmm. We have black people running for the mayor of the town. And we have a president of UNLV who's African American. Mm-hmm. And so the university is reaching out into the community, not just the black community, but Latinx community. We're reaching out into the community in a new way today. Yep. And I want to end by saying that I met you when you had John Hope Franklin. Oh, Lord. You did an interview. Yes, a girlfriend and I drove to Los Angeles to see your interview with John Hope Franklin years ago. No, we spent the night at the Biltmore. It was wonderful.
Oh, you were kind to say that. My mother's listening, and I know she's smiling and probably crying. I've said many times, we all want to be acknowledged, appreciated, affirmed, and loved for what we're trying to do. And I've said many times, all we know is what we're giving. We never know what people are receiving. And I didn't know that story until the end of this conversation, but I'm just humbled to hear that you came to see my conversation with the great John Hope Franklin, one of the greatest black minds that ever lived. And yours is pretty good, too. And I've been honored to be in this conversation with you. Thank you for sharing that story. Her name is Claytee D. White, the inaugural director of the Oral History Research Center for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Libraries, one of the 5 founders of the Las Vegas Black Historical Society, Inc. I am honored to have had you on this program. We celebrate all those black folk years ago in 1960, today, that integrated that city before the rest of the country. We owe them a debt of gratitude, as we do Claytee D. White. Good to have you on. All the best to you.
Wonderful. Best to you.
Thank you for your time. Coming up next, a 1-hour conversation with Don Lemon on Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
said at least 6 construction workers were on the Francis Scott Key Bridge when it plunged into